Hello and welcome to Colin's Wonder. I hope you're having a wonderful day. And welcome to the first entry into Ink Wars. So before I begin, let me just explain that I did record a long format version of this video. I am unsure whether or not I should post it because it turned into an hour-long video. If you're interested in seeing this longer video, let me know. But I figured I'll jump to the summary. So in this video, I'm labeling as Midnight. So the theme is Midnight Inks. So we're going to go and look at Midnight Blue by Montblanc. We're going to look at Tsuki-Yo by Pilot Iroshizuku. The cap was off. That was almost an accident. And we're going to look at Midnight Hour by Diamine. And that is a sheening ink. So if I jump to our results here, I believe I have a shortcut or not. Which is, where did my shortcut go? There it is. So I'll first go over and pull out the sample cards and the scorecards. So again, just to remind you, I put the inks into 3 Kakunos and 3 Lamy Safaris, and also did a little bit of testing with the dip pen. And I have these samples. So I'm going to zoom in the camera to give you a closer look. All right, so let's start with Midnight Blue by Montblanc. And we'll look at samples first, and then the scores. You may have seen the scores as spoilers, but that's okay. So the order I did it in was Midnight Blue first. So you can look at how this pen looks on Toyama, or this ink looks on Toyama River, Midori, and Rhodia. As you can see, it has a little bit of sheen to it with the dip pen. So it didn't really hold up too well with the dip pen. Another thing I will mention is in this testing, I noticed that the Midori paper kind of disintegrates a little bit more than the others and can clog up the nibs, which is interesting and is something to look out for. And I will keep in mind when it comes to paper wars. So yeah, here's Midnight Blue on those different papers. Next we have Tsuki-Yo by Pilot Iroshizuku. And this ink also has a little bit of sheening characteristics with it if you use it as a dip ink. But in normal writing you won't see them very much. At least I'm not. And then the last ink we have is Midnight Hour by Diamine. And I got a little bit of smudge there because the ink was still drying as I was shuffling some paper around. But as you can see, this ink is a sheener, and it is a sheening monster. But there is some color variation from blue to black, and I do think it is an overall pretty ink. But I do have issues with it causing my pens to hard start more than normal. So in total I put this ink in 4 pens so far, and 3 of them thus far have a slight hard start issue if I have the pen uncapped with the nib exposed to the air for any amount of time over 30 seconds. It seems to cause a little bit of a hard start. Okay, so now let's get a close look at these inks side by side. So Midnight Blue, we have Tsuki-Yo and Midnight Hour. You can kind of see them side by side on the different papers. And now let's go over how I scored them. Again, if you're interested in the longer video, let me know. But I don't know if anyone has the patience to watch that for an hour. So Midnight Blue by Montblanc. Overall, I think this ink is... it got a lower score. It probably deserves a higher score, to be honest. But overall, I don't think this ink is very special for me. I have becoming more appreciative of it. But I don't think it is something that stands out in my mind. And I don't necessarily think it represents a fantastically blue color, or the color blue or black, very well. I did have some bleeding issues with the ink. Let me look. It bled, out of all of them, it bled the worst. It bled through, in some cases, through this paper, and the printer paper is supposed to be a catch, and it bled through the printer paper. So yeah, that was surprising to me, because I know this ink dries a little bit faster than the other inks. So I was a little impressed with the bleeding. And then we have, so yeah, it got a 67.3 out of 100. I didn't give it any bonus for features. I don't think it's necessarily the prettiest ink out there. It is just kind of a plain ink to me. Next up, we have Midnight Hour by Diamine. So overall, my thoughts and impressions of this ink is, when it writes, I love writing with it. It feels great. It just does. It looks great. I love the color variation from blue to black. I love the sheening characteristics. This ink does seem to dry a little bit slower than the other inks. I did have a little bit of ghosting issues with all of these inks showing up. They are a little bit darker. You know, maybe a lighter ink won't have that issue, but I can see it from the back of the paper. And then let's see, the other thing about this is I dinged it pretty hard on the skipping, because it actually skipped as I was doing the tests, or filling out the scorecard more than anything. As I'm talking and filling out the scorecard, it started to skip on me, or not skip, hard start. So I dinged it on the skipping score pretty hard there. And it did get a lot of boost on the looks and color. I do think it represents the color of black and blue very well, and it has some bonus sheening feature that it does really well, in my mind. Subjective. But if you take out the features, it still scored pretty high with a 91.5. Maybe this is a little bit higher than it deserves. I could see that argument. Subjectivity. Again, these are just my thoughts as I was scoring it. So did pretty well, and I do like this ink. I just wish, I really wish it didn't dry out in the nib if it's uncapped for a significant amount of time. I mean, I'm talking like 30 seconds to a minute it started to dry out on me, which I don't think is really fun. But yeah, keep that in mind. And then the next one we have is Tsuki-Yo by Pilot Iroshizuku. And overall, I think this one scored the highest raw score without the bonus feature of a 92.1. I do think this ink overall just feels great, especially on the more premium papers. It did get dinged a little bit on the moleskin for bleeding and feathering. Out of all the inks, I think the one that feathered the least was the Midnight Hour. But yeah, we can show them side by side. You can just look at moleskin. The moleskin results for those three inks. So we have moleskin on the bottom here. This is Midnight Hour. This is Iroshizuku. So it's Tsuki-Yo. And then we have Midnight Blue. So you can see this one seemed to have feathered the most, and then this one feathered the least. It just kind of worked out that way. So yeah, 92.1. So some thoughts here. I need a better measurement or definition for drying. I don't know of a good way to do this other than trying to raw measure the drying time. And I didn't really want to do that. So if you have any ideas, let me know. And if you're interested in seeing this longer format video, let me know. Again, it's an hour long. So, but you'll kind of see me drawing these out in real time. And just, talking about it as I'm doing it. But yeah, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Thanks for watching this video. And that's it.